For more than 100 years, peace had stretched across the stars. The Galactic Truce, a fragile agreement among the great alien empires, had silenced the guns of the cosmos. Worlds that once burned in endless war now glowed with the light of trade and cooperation. The proud Thakar, the wise Luminar, and the clever Virin each ruled sectors of the galaxy, all bound by the same promise. Never again would the stars run red. When humanity arrived, they were small. They came late to the table of the great powers, their ships slower, their colonies fewer. But humans had something the others did not. They could make anyone smile. Where the Thakar spoke only in laws, humans told jokes. Where the Luminar solved logic puzzles, humans painted pictures. And where the Virin made threats, humans shared stories. They were strange, yes, but their laughter filled the cold halls of diplomacy with something new. Warmth. Captain Elias Drake, commander of the Terran diplomatic vessel Horizon's Call, believed in that warmth. He had seen too much war during Earth's early days among the stars. Now he was a man devoted to peace. He and his crew traveled from world to world, carrying not weapons but words. They brought movies, books, games, and music from Earth, gifts that made even the most emotionless alien ambassadors curious. On the observation deck of his ship, Drake stood beside his first officer, Lieutenant Mara Voss, watching the glow of the planet Kalira ahead of them. "It never gets old," Drake said softly. The planet's surface shimmered with gold lights from the great domes where the Centennial Truce Summit would soon begin. "Peace looks beautiful from here," Mara replied. "Let's hope it still looks that way when we leave." Drake smiled. "Optimism, Lieutenant. It's the best engine in the galaxy," they laughed, a small, shared sound that echoed through the quiet deck. When the Horizon's Call landed, ambassadors and delegates from dozens of species filled the grand hall. Tall Thakar in bronze armor stood beside shining Luminar beings made of light. The Virin, insect-like and sharp-featured, wore robes that shimmered like oil on water. Humanity's section was small but lively, decorated with banners showing the blue earth rising above the moon. The opening speech was given by High Chancellor Sailor of the Luminar, his voice like music through crystal. "For a century," he said, "we have known the calm of unity. No border wars, no lost worlds, no star fleets burning in the dark. Today we celebrate not the power of armies, but the courage of peace." Drake listened with quiet pride. The Terran delegation clapped, and even a few aliens joined. Yet not all faces were joyful. In one shadowed corner, a Virin commander named Tarkesh Val watched with cold eyes. To him, peace was weakness. His people had once ruled through fear, their fleets unmatched. But now, with trade and treaties, they had lost that dominance. He saw humans rising in popularity, their strange laughter spreading influence far beyond their size. To him, humanity's joy was an insult. "They think laughter wins wars," Tarkesh muttered under his breath. "Let us see them laugh when the stars burn again." Later that evening, Captain Drake mingled among guests. He talked about Earth's music, shared recordings of oceans, and even showed aliens how to play chess. The Thakar ambassador laughed, an awkward rumbling sound after losing his first game. "You humans make everything seem simple," the ambassador said. "Not simple," Drake corrected kindly. "Just lighter. The universe is heavy enough already." Meanwhile, Mara Voss watched the crowd. She noticed that several Virin officers were whispering together, their eyes shifting around the hall as if waiting for something. Her instincts, shaped by years in the Navy, told her something wasn't right. She approached Drake quietly. "Sir, have you noticed how the Virin delegation's keeping to themselves?" Drake nodded but waved off her concern. "They're not exactly known for small talk." "Relax, Lieutenant. Tonight's about peace." Still, Mara couldn't shake the feeling that peace felt fragile, like glass under pressure. At midnight, a soft hum filled the great hall. It was the anthem of the truce, played before every celebration. Lights dimmed and a holographic display showed the history of the century-long peace. Worlds rebuilding, fleets disarming, children of different species studying together. Laughter shared across communication networks echoed in the background. But then the music changed. The soft hum became a piercing wail. The holographic stars turned red. And above the hall, the great skylights cracked with sudden force. Mara shouted, "Get down!" A moment later, the sky split open. From orbit, a fleet of ships descended, sleek black vessels bearing the Virin insignia. Beams of plasma lanced downward, striking the city around the summit. Towers collapsed. Fire and debris filled the air. Inside the hall, panic erupted. Ambassadors screamed in alien tongues. Luminar forms flickered and vanished. Drake pulled Mara behind cover as an explosion shattered the main doors. "The truce, it's been broken," Mara cried. Drake's heart sank. The peace they had built, the laughter they had spread, it was all being destroyed before his eyes. But he wasn't a man who froze. He turned to his crew and barked, "Evacuation plan Delta. Get the ambassadors to the ship, move." They ran through smoke and chaos. Outside, the once beautiful summit grounds were now a battlefield. The air burned, filled with the scent of ozone and fear. Drake saw Verin troops landing, firing at fleeing diplomats. He fired back with his sidearm, not to kill but to buy time. One of the Luminar ambassadors fell beside him, her body dimming. She whispered, "Why? Why attack after all this time?" Drake clenched his jaw. "Because peace scares those who can't live without control." He carried her to safety even as his uniform burned with embers. Above them, the Horizon's call hovered low, its engines roaring. The ship's AI voice came through Drake's earpiece. "Captain, the summit is lost. Enemy ships approaching from orbit." "Hold steady," Drake ordered. "We're not leaving anyone behind." Hours later, the Horizon's call broke free from Kalira's atmosphere. Behind them, the once bright moon was dark, its cities smoking, its peace gone. The truce that had tamed the galaxy was shattered. Drake stood on the bridge, staring at the ruins on the view screen. Around him, survivors wept, Thakar, Luminar, and human alike. But Drake did not cry. His hands trembled, yet his eyes burned with something stronger than despair. "Captain?" Mara asked softly. "What do we do now?" He turned toward her, his voice calm but steady. "We do what humans always do when the world breaks, Lieutenant," she frowned. "And what's that?" Drake gave a faint, tired smile. "We start again." The crew was silent for a long moment. Then from somewhere deep in the ship, a small sound rose. A chuckle. It spread slowly, uncertain at first, then stronger. A few of the alien ambassadors looked confused, but some began to smile too. Even in the ashes of betrayal, humanity found its way back to laughter. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant, unaware of the chaos below. But for Captain Elias Drake and his crew, those stars were not the end. They were the beginning of a new fight. The galaxy had forgotten what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. Soon they would remember. The Horizon's call drifted in the quiet darkness between stars. The crew was silent. The sounds of Kalira's destruction still echoed in their minds. The explosions, the screams, the sight of cities falling apart. The Galactic Truce, the peace that had held for a century, was gone. Captain Elias Drake sat in the command chair, staring at the empty void ahead. His eyes were hard, tired, but filled with thought. Around him, the bridge flickered with damaged lights. The once proud Terran vessel now carried refugees, diplomats from many worlds, all shaken, all frightened. Lieutenant Mara Voss stood beside him, reading the reports from the lower decks. "We have over 300 survivors aboard, Captain. Thakar, Luminar, and some human staff. Many are injured, but our medics are doing everything they can." Drake nodded slowly. "And the enemy?" "Still searching the area," Mara replied. The Verin fleet destroyed all communication satellites before they left Kalira orbit. The galaxy doesn't even know what happened yet. That thought hit Drake hard. The universe still believed the truce was alive, but it wasn't. He clenched his fist. "Then we'll have to be the ones to tell them," he said quietly. "No one else can." Hours later, the crew gathered in the main hall, a space usually used for diplomatic banquets. Now it was filled with tired faces and flickering emergency lights. Drake stood before them all, his uniform still burned from battle. "I wish I could tell you the truce is safe," he began. "I wish I could say Kalira was just an accident. But you all saw what happened. The Verin attacked without warning. They broke the peace, and unless someone stands up, the galaxy will fall back into war." A Thakar general raised his heavy armored head. "You are a small species, human. Your ships are few. You cannot fight the Verin alone." Drake met the alien's glowing eyes without fear. "You're right, General. We can't win with power, but we don't have to fight their way. Humanity has a different weapon, courage." A quiet murmur ran through the room. The Luminar ambassador, a tall being made of soft light, spoke next. "You humans still hope even now? After such loss?" Drake smiled faintly. "Hope is the only thing they haven't learned how to destroy." There was silence, then slow nods. Even in despair, something began to grow. Trust. Later, in the ship's small lounge, Drake sat alone, watching the stars drift past. A recording from Earth played softly, an old comedy show. Laughter filled the air. It sounded strange in that moment, but comforting too. Mara entered quietly and sat beside him. "You're still watching those?" she asked. He shrugged. "Helps me think. Reminds me of home." She looked at the screen, people laughing even after losing everything. "Do you think we'll ever laugh like that again?" Drake smiled gently. "We already are, Mara. Every time we keep going, every time we choose hope instead of fear, that's a kind of laughter." She didn't answer, but her eyes softened. The captain's faith was contagious, even in the darkest hour. Meanwhile, across the stars, the Vereen fleet celebrated. In the massive war chamber aboard the flagship Dominator, Commander Tarkesh Val addressed his officers. "The truce is dead," he declared proudly. "The galaxy's balance is broken. The other empires will turn on each other soon. Humanity will be blamed for the chaos, and when they're gone, we will rule once again." A Viren lieutenant hesitated. "Commander, there are reports that one Terran ship escaped." "The Horizons call." Tarkesh's eyes narrowed. "One ship will not change history. Send out hunting units. I want that vessel destroyed before it spreads the truth." "Yes, Commander." Tarkesh turned to the stars outside the viewport. "Let the galaxy sleep in lies a little longer," he whispered. "Soon it will wake in flames." Back aboard the Horizons call, the humans worked without rest. Engineers repaired engines, medics tended to the wounded, and diplomats tried to contact anyone who would listen. But communication was nearly impossible. The Viren had blocked major relay routes, cutting the galaxy's networks apart. Then finally a faint signal reached them, a distress call from the Thakar border world of Haloris. The planet reported Viren ships attacking civilian colonies. Mara looked at Drake. "Sir, that's hundreds of light years away. We can't fight a whole fleet." Drake nodded. "We're not fighting. We're saving whoever we can. If we sit still, we die forgotten. If we act, maybe someone else will join us." He turned to the helm. Set course for Haloris. The journey took 2 days. When they arrived, they found the planet burning. Viren drones were bombing cities while their capital ships hovered in orbit. The Thakar defense grid had already fallen. Drake stared at the view. "They're not conquering. They're destroying everything." Mara's hands tightened on the console. "Captain, the odds are impossible." "Then let's make them impossible for the other side too," Drake said. "Prepare decoy drones. Load every last probe with noise emitters and holographic projectors." The crew stared at him. "You mean fake ships?" "Exactly," Drake said with a grin. "Let's make them think the humans brought a fleet." Within minutes, the Horizons call released dozens of small machines into the void. Each one projected a massive illusion, warships glowing with false energy signatures. To the Viren sensors, it looked like an entire Terran armada had arrived. On the enemy flagship, alarms blared. "Multiple human fleets detected," a Viren officer shouted. "They're surrounding us." Tarkesh Val, furious and confused, slammed his clawed hand on the console. "Impossible." Humans don't have that many ships, but panic spread through the enemy ranks. Their commanders ordered a retreat, believing they had walked into a trap. Within minutes, the Viren fleet fled the system, leaving Haloris free. Back on the Horizons call, the crew cheered. Refugees on the planet below sent messages of thanks. The Thakar survivors hailed humanity as heroes. Drake, however, remained calm. "We didn't win a war," he reminded them. "We just gave the galaxy a little more time." Still, a small smile touched his lips. Humanity's first act after the fall of peace wasn't revenge. It was rescue. Days later, the ship anchored near an asteroid base. There they met small groups of rebels, Thakar pilots, Luminar scientists, and even a few Viren defectors who hated what their leaders had done. The group called themselves the Free Stars. A young Viren engineer approached Drake nervously. "Humans and you fight without rage. You laugh while facing death." "Why?" Drake chuckled softly. "Because fear feeds them, but laughter feeds us. It reminds us we're still alive." The alien tilted his head. "Strange. But maybe that is why you will win." That night, in the quiet of the captain's quarters, Drake finally recorded a message. His voice was steady but full of emotion. "To anyone who hears this, this is Captain Elias Drake of the Terran vessel Horizons Call. The Galactic Truce is no more. The Viren Directorate has betrayed the peace and attacked Kalira. Worlds are falling, but we are not gone. Humanity stands and we are not alone. If you can hear this, fight not with hate but with hope. Join us. The light of peace can return, but only if we carry it ourselves. He ended the message and sent it across every frequency he could reach. It might not travel far, but he knew one thing. Somewhere someone would hear it. The next morning, the crew gathered again. Mara brought reports, new alliances forming, whispers of resistance and small victories across nearby systems. The galaxy was waking up. Drake stood on the bridge, his eyes on the stars. They thought laughter made us weak, he said softly. They forgot it's how we stay strong. Mara smiled beside him. What now, Captain? He grinned. Now? We make them remember what humans do best. We adapt, we surprise. And when the darkness comes, he looked out at the endless sky. We laugh in its face. As the Horizon's call leapt into hyperspace, its engines roared like thunder, a human sound echoing through the stars. The galaxy had witnessed betrayal, but it was about to witness something even greater, the return of human courage. And though war had begun again, somewhere deep in the void, it almost sounded like the stars themselves were beginning to laugh back. News of the attack on Kalira had spread like wildfire. The truth that Captain Elias Drake and his crew sent through hidden channels reached hundreds of worlds. The Viren Directorate tried to deny it, but the evidence was everywhere. Burned cities, broken treaties, and survivors who refused to stay silent. Across the stars, people began to whisper a name, Horizon's Call. Some called it a ghost ship. Others called it a miracle. To many, it was simply hope. Captain Drake stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching the blue swirl of hyperspace outside the viewport. His crew worked quietly behind him, repairing circuits, scanning transmissions, and checking the safety of their passengers. Every person aboard knew that the Viren were still hunting them. Lieutenant Mara Voss entered the bridge holding a datapad. Captain, the latest report from the Free Stars is here. They've formed resistance cells in 5 systems now, mostly refugees, traders, and some Thakar veterans. Drake smiled slightly. That's how big fires start, and from small sparks. Mara sighed. We need more than sparks, sir. We need fuel. The Viren fleet grows every week. Their factories on the outer rim are working non-stop. I know, Drake said, turning to face her. But we're not trying to win their kind of war. Ours will be different. Different how? He grinned. We'll fight with our hearts, and maybe a little bit of humor. Mara raised an eyebrow. You're going to fight the most feared fleet in the galaxy. With jokes? Not jokes, Drake said with a smile. Spirit. Days later, the Horizon's Call entered orbit over a small desert world called Vega 9. It was a quiet planet, no major cities, only mining colonies and dusty canyons. But it was also where a small Viren outpost had been built to control nearby trade routes. The humans had a plan. Drake gathered his crew in the command room. A hologram of the Viren base floated above the table, spires of metal surrounded by plasma shields. The Viren are using this station to control communication across 3 systems, Drake explained. If we take it down, we open a corridor for the Free Stars to send messages safely. Mara frowned. That base is heavily armed, sir. We can't fight it directly, Drake smiled. We won't. We'll make them think we already did. He turned to Juno Hayes, the ship's engineer. Juno, how fast can you turn our drone bay into a fireworks show? Juno grinned. Give me 2 hours and a power cell. We'll make the biggest distraction this side of the galaxy. 2 hours later, the Horizon's Call descended into Vega 9's atmosphere. Clouds of dust swirled as dozens of drones launched into the sky, glowing with bright colors and fake heat signatures. They raced toward the Viren base, appearing on scanners as a full-scale Terran assault. Inside the Viren control room, alarms blared. Multiple ships incoming, shouted an officer. Dozens of Terran signals, the commander hissed. Destroy them all. They fired every turret, every cannon, filling the sky with blazing plasma fire. The drones exploded one by one, bright bursts of light that painted the desert red and gold. From orbit, it looked like a battle of legends, but it wasn't real. While the Viren wasted their firepower, the Horizon's Call slipped in low from the opposite side, hidden behind the planet's canyon ridge. A small team of humans and allies landed quietly near the base's generator. Mara led them, moving swiftly through the dust and smoke. Juno worked fast, attaching devices to the generator's core. Once this blows, she said, their shields will drop for exactly 3 minutes. 3 minutes is all we need, Mara replied. They slipped away as the generator began to hum dangerously. Moments later, a flash of white light filled the sky. The shield was down. Drake, waiting aboard the ship, gave the order. Fire plasma nets. Aim for the comm towers. Blue energy lanced across the canyon, striking the towers with precision. The Viren base went dark. Their communication relay was gone. The Resistance now had a way to speak freely again. As the Horizon's call escaped into orbit, the crew cheered. The attack had been clean, fast, and bloodless. Drake's kind of victory. Later, during the celebration in the mess hall, laughter filled the air. Someone played old Earth music. A Thakar soldier clumsily tried to dance while Juno threw confetti made from spare foil wrappers. It wasn't much, but it felt like happiness again. Mara watched Drake from across the room. He was sitting with a few alien refugees, telling them an Earth story about a sailor who survived by joking through every storm. Even the serious Thakar chuckled at the punchline. When she joined him, she said, "You really believe laughter can win wars?" Drake looked at her. "Not win, but it can remind us why we fight. For peace?" she asked. He shook his head. "For life. For light. For each other." Days passed and word of their victory spread. Across the galaxy, new resistance cells began to rise. They painted human laughter symbols on their ships, a smile within a star. It became a sign of hope, seen even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. But the Viren were not blind. Commander Tarkesh Val, furious at the repeated failures, ordered a full-scale hunt. "Find the human ship," he commanded, "and silence their laughter forever." His new strategy was simple: spread fear faster than hope. Viren fleets attacked neutral stations, blaming humanity for the chaos. They hacked networks, twisting Drake's messages into lies. Some worlds began to believe the humans had started the war. Drake saw the confusion growing. On the bridge, he played intercepted broadcasts, alien leaders accusing humanity of treachery. "They're winning the message war," Mara said. "If we don't respond soon, no one will trust us." Drake nodded slowly. "Then it's time to show them who we really are." A week later, the Horizon's call sent an open broadcast across every known channel. The message began with silence, then a soft sound, human laughter. Drake appeared on screen, standing before the flag of the Free Stars. His tone was calm, but his eyes burned with determination. "This is Captain Elias Drake of the Terran vessel Horizon's call. To the people of the galaxy, you've heard lies. You've seen fear, but I ask you to look beyond it. Humanity didn't start this war. We didn't break the truce. We were there when Kalira fell, saving who we could. We fought not to conquer, but to protect. They tell you laughter means madness. They're wrong. It means strength. Because when we laugh, it means we're still free. If you can hear this, don't be silent. Stand, speak, and remember, and even in the darkest night, the stars still shine." The transmission spread faster than any weapon. It was replayed on hidden frequencies, shared across black markets, and projected on city walls. The image of Drake laughing at the end became a symbol, a small glowing light against the shadow of war. Tarkesh Val saw the message too. His claws clenched the armrest of his command chair. "He mocks us," he shouted. "A single human ship turns the galaxy against us." An officer trembled. "Commander, perhaps we should send peace feelers." "Never," Tarkesh roared. "If they laugh at us, we'll burn their laughter from the stars." He ordered the creation of the Eclipser fleet, a massive armada of warships armed with devastating plasma cannons. Their first mission: find Horizon's call. Back aboard the Terran ship, Drake didn't know about the new fleet yet. He stood alone in the observation room watching the stars. Mara joined him quietly. "You look tired," she said. He smiled faintly. "I am, but it's a good kind of tired. You think the galaxy heard you?" He nodded slowly. "They heard us, and that's enough. Once laughter begins, it spreads on its own." She smiled. "You're strange, Captain, but I think you're right." He laughed softly. "Strange is our specialty." Outside the window, the stars shimmered, distant, endless, but somehow warmer now. Humanity had become the spark that refused to die, the sound that refused to fade, and somewhere in a dozen corners of the galaxy, that spark was catching fire. Miners raised makeshift banners. Refugees rebuilt hidden stations. Even alien children laughed again. The Varin had started a war to silence hope, but they had only made it louder. After the daring raids led by Captain Elias Drake, whispers of hope had spread across countless worlds. Refugees, ex-soldiers, and even dissident Varin began organizing under a single banner, the United Free. Humanity was no longer alone in the fight. Every action they took, every plan they made, sparked courage in allies far and wide. The Horizon's call flew through the outer sectors, carrying not only humans, but an eclectic mix of species. Thakar soldiers trained side by side with humans. Luminar engineers shared their knowledge of energy cores, and even small groups of Viren defectors offered intelligence. They all looked to Captain Drake for guidance, the small, strange human who laughed in the face of war. On the bridge, Drake and Mara watched a holographic display of the galaxy. Red dots marked Viren-controlled territories, green dots showed resistance cells. "They're spread out too thin," Mara said. "Even with all of us, the Viren's fleet could crush these pockets quickly." Drake shook his head. "That's the mistake they always make. They think strength is only measured by numbers or weapons. We'll show them it's measured by spirit." He tapped the display. "We're going to hit them where they least expect it. Their factories on the outer rim. We'll liberate the workers and sabotage production. It's not a battle to win, it's a message to be heard." Mara frowned. "It's risky, Captain. If they discover us," Drake smiled faintly, "then they'll discover the truth about humans. We don't hide in fear. We fight with courage, man, and sometimes laughter." 2 days later, the Coalition fleet approached the first Viren factory. It was massive, orbiting a barren planet like a crown of steel. Drone defenses scanned the area constantly. The humans could have attacked directly, but Drake had a better plan. He ordered every ship in the fleet to project false signals. Hundreds of ghost fleets, each one appearing more terrifying than the last. Holographic explosions flashed on sensors, decoy energy readings confused enemy scanners, and the Varine grew frantic. From inside the factory, the workers watched in disbelief as the supposed human fleet seemed unstoppable. But in truth, the Horizon's call and a handful of allies had slipped through, landing in small pods on the planet's surface. Mara led them, moving quietly through the shadows, disabling security and freeing captives. Juno Hayes, ever resourceful, planted sabotage charges along the production lines. "When this goes off," she said, "their weapons won't just stop, they'll be useless for months." "Good," Drake replied. "Let's make sure the next generation remembers humans aren't just fighters. We're clever too." The charges exploded in perfect sequence. Fireballs danced across the factories, setting off alarms and forcing Varin soldiers to retreat. From orbit, it looked like a full-scale invasion, but the Coalition had not lost a single life. When the smoke cleared, the workers cheered. Alien engineers who had spent years under oppression finally felt freedom. They raised banners with the human smile symbol, a simple icon of hope. And across the galaxy, this message of unity spread quickly. Drake stood among the freed workers, observing quietly. Mara approached, noticing the proud look in his eyes. "You did it," she said. Drake shook his head. "We did it together. Humans alone couldn't have done this. But together, we can remind the galaxy what it means to fight for life." While the Coalition celebrated, the Viren Directorate was in chaos. Tarkishval raged in his command room. Every strategic move he made was anticipated, sabotaged, or simply outsmarted. Their factories burned, their fleets were tricked by illusions, and even their propaganda could not hide the growing strength of the United Free. "They mock us," he bellowed. "The humans and their allies defy reason. Destroy them before they grow any stronger." His advisors tried to calm him, but he refused to listen. His obsession blinded him. As the United Free prepared for their next move, Drake gathered all leaders aboard the Horizon's call for a council. "Today we freed workers, inspired resistance, and sent a clear message," he began. "Tomorrow we go further. We strike at the heart of the Viren fleet, not to destroy everything, but to show that no one is untouchable. We will unite the galaxy not through fear, but through courage, and we will remind everyone that humans, no matter how small, are never alone." A Thakar general nodded. "Then we follow your lead, human. Let us show the galaxy what it means to fight for life, not death." Even the Luminar and Viren defectors agreed. And with that, the Coalition formed one purpose: to bring light to the darkest corners of the galaxy. The Horizon's call led the fleet toward the next target. the Outer Rim Command Station. Drake knew it would be dangerous. The Viren had concentrated their most powerful warships there, including experimental weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. But Drake's plan relied on human unpredictability. Instead of a direct assault, he sent small strike teams to cut off communications and create false signals. While the Viren scrambled to respond, the coalition moved swiftly to capture key points. Even in the middle of chaos, laughter echoed through their ranks, not out of foolishness, but as a reminder that courage thrives when fear is denied. Every prank, every clever maneuver, and every daring escape became a story that inspired more allies to rise. After weeks of careful strikes and rescues, the United Free had grown into a visible force, no longer a hidden resistance, but a coalition that spanned species, systems, and ideologies. Tales of human bravery spread faster than Viren propaganda. Captain Drake looked at the fleet from the bridge, proud but aware of the dangers ahead. "They think weapons decide wars," he said to Mara, "but unity decides them, and as long as we fight together, they will never break us." Mara nodded, understanding what he meant. This was more than battles. It was a movement, a fire of unity that burned across the galaxy, fueled by courage, hope, and yes, laughter. In the distance, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if echoing the determination of the United Free. Somewhere in the darkness, the Viren Directorate began constructing their deadliest weapon yet, the Eclipser Array. But Drake and his crew did not fear it. They knew the galaxy had learned something more powerful than any weapon, the power of unity and spirit. And so, the stage was set. The galaxy's future would not be decided by fear or tyranny. It would be decided by those brave enough to fight for life, hope, and laughter. The galaxy was on edge. The Viren Directorate, humiliated by repeated defeats, had constructed the Eclipser Array, a massive weapon capable of destroying entire fleets and laying waste to worlds. Its power dwarfed anything humanity had ever faced. But Captain Elias Drake and the United Free were not afraid. They had learned a lesson that weapons alone could never teach. Courage, creativity, and unity could turn even the impossible into victory. The coalition fleet gathered near the Eclipser's location, a dark, swirling nebula where the weapon had been hidden. Human ships, the Car dreadnoughts, and Luminar energy vessels floated silently, waiting for the signal. Drake stood on the bridge of the horizon's call, watching the stars shimmer through the nebula's edge. Mara joined him. "Sir, this is it. If we fail..." Drake shook his head firmly. "We won't fail. Remember what we've done already. Remember every life we've saved, every heart we've inspired. Courage beats fear when the odds are impossible." A small chuckle escaped him. "And never underestimate laughter." Mara smiled. "You really believe in that, don't you?" "Always," Drake replied. "Because the galaxy remembers those who laugh in the dark." The plan was simple, audacious, and human. A small strike team led by Drake and Mara would infiltrate the Eclipser's core. While the main fleet distracted the Viren, Juno Hayes would sabotage the weapon's energy matrix. It was risky. Death was a real possibility. But as always, the human way was to act boldly. Inside the Eclipser's chamber, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across massive control panels. Juno worked swiftly, her hands moving with precision. "Almost there," she said. Sparks flew as she rerouted energy flows. Meanwhile, Drake and Mara faced guards, but instead of fighting with brute force, they used clever traps and distractions. Smoke mirrors and loud recordings of human laughter confused the Viren soldiers. They moved as shadows, striking only when necessary, always avoiding unnecessary harm. Outside, the fleet engaged the Viren armada. False fleets, holographic duplicates, and clever maneuvers kept the enemy guessing. Plasma beams struck empty space. Explosions lit the nebula like fireworks. The Viren officers were frustrated, unable to predict human strategy. One Thakar ship captain radioed, "I've never seen tactics like this. They're playing with us." Drake's voice came over the comm. "We play because we fight for life, not death." Finally, Juno's sabotage succeeded. The Eclipser's core became unstable. Lights flashed red, alarms shrieked, and a massive implosion began. Drake and Mara raced to escape pods as the chamber shook violently. Seconds later, the weapon imploded, consuming the armada in a dazzling explosion of energy. The nebula glowed with the light of victory, For the first time in decades, a terrible power was defeated, without the need for endless destruction. Humanity had turned the impossible into triumph. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations heard the news. Rebel fleets cheered, civilians celebrated. Even those who had doubted humanity's courage began to share stories of human defiance. The Horizon's call and its crew became legends, not for war but for hope, strategy, and spirit. Captain Drake, exhausted but triumphant, addressed the coalition from the bridge. We did not fight to conquer. We fought to remind the galaxy that courage, unity, and laughter are stronger than fear. Never forget, even in the darkest night, the stars still shine. And sometimes they laugh with us. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. You did it, Elias, you really did it. Drake smiled faintly. We all did. Humanity alone is strong, but together, we are unstoppable. Weeks later, the first new Galactic Truce Summit was held on a peaceful world. Delegates from every species attended, not out of fear, but out of respect for life. Human children played with alien children. Music filled the halls. Stories of courage and laughter spread across every corridor. The galaxy had learned a vital lesson. True power does not lie in weapons or armies. It lies in hope, unity, and the courage to rise again, even after betrayal. Captain Elias Drake stood outside the summit hall looking at the stars. Somewhere far away, the ruins of the Virian Armada drifted silently, a reminder of failure born from arrogance. But above him, the universe was alive. And if one listened closely, it almost sounded like the stars themselves were laughing, echoing humanity's courage, joy, and unbroken spirit across the galaxy.